everybody. Well, thank you for joining us for another week of the Rec Poker Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Reed, Bluffsterini in the home games, or you can find out about me and the rest of the Wrecking crew by going to rec.poker/crew. And if you don't know what Rec Poker is, we're a free community of recreational players who believe that learning can be a positive and encouraging experience, and that you have more fun when you beat other people. So come over to rec.poker, learn how to play in a fun way, and learn how to crush your own home games and just get better at poker together. That's what we do. So another thing we do is we thank our sponsors, Website Amp and Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack, and Casino. Another thing we do is we talk to great people in the world of poker, and we're going to do that with one of my favorites, Nate Meyvis, in just a moment. I just want to take a second first to thank a couple folks who have gotten involved over the last little while at Rec Poker, specifically Kenzo DeQuester, who I haven't gotten a chance to get to know very well, but I know they have given premium membership at rec.poker a chance, and I'm looking forward to getting to know them a little better. And Con Nguyen, who also has become a premium member over the last little while, and I hope that they have had a chance to enjoy a lot of the great learning and community stuff that we do here at Rec Poker. So, someone who is no stranger to community or learning in the world of poker is Nate freaking Meyvis. Nate, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, no stranger to poker podcasting either.
Yeah, good point. Good point. And I know we're here in kind of a bittersweet moment in your podcasting career. For those who don't know, Nate recently is taking a bit of a back seat, I guess. How did you say? Putting it on the sidelines?
Carlos is a host. I am no longer a host of Thinking Poker. After 8+ years as a host of Thinking Poker, I am not a host of Thinking Poker.
Wow. And what is that? We'll get into how that came about and your journey getting to there. But I mean, some people are obviously, our listeners are going to know you pretty well already and know your experiences with Thinking Poker. Just talk about, let's go back to front for a second here. How does that feel now? That's a big commitment. 8 years is a long time to spend doing anything. What's it like on the other side?
It's good. And so, this was something that I discovered. There are decisions in life that you make and that are like big turning points where you really have to turn. And then sometimes you're just driving down the highway and you realize you missed your exit. And it's like, I guess I'm going to Utah. And, I woke up one day and I hadn't played a hand of poker in a year and a half. And I was dreaming about software engineering and not about poker. And I had no plans to poker live, and I had no plans to play poker on the internet. And I adore Andrew. I adore Thinking Poker, but I'm extremely time constrained. I've been blessed with another child. I have 2 kids now.
Congratulations,
and,
man.
COVID, knock on wood, so far, I've been very blessed. COVID has not killed much in my life. It seems to have killed my poker career. That seems to be the big casualty of COVID in my life. So given that, and given that Carlos is amazing, everybody loves Carlos.
It's true.
He was ready to step in, loves poker, and nobody better to take it over. And Andrew is a solid dude. So the show is in good hands. And like poker, this is part of poker, right? People come and go. That's part of the poker world. This is like something different. It's not being a monk. It's a world that like notoriously takes anybody. Like when I was getting in the game, it was still a little bit new that card rooms would like check your IDs.
Right.
There are those famous stories about Phil Ivey showing up in Atlantic City the day he turned 21 and deciding, and like for the first time, brandishing his legitimate ID. But like, it's, one of my favorite poker jokes is like, people like to ask, how do you become a professional poker player? And it's like, it's very easy. You just quit your job, like there are no like, and leaving it is like that too. It's not, I haven't been shunned. I'm just a guy who doesn't play poker. I'm just a guy with a family and a job, and who doesn't have any plans to play poker, and also doesn't have plans to spend a lot of time talking about poker, although I will miss it.
I'm sure. And I think, we talk about at Rec Poker a lot about kind of following your natural energy and doing what you love doing, and then just bringing other people along for the ride. That's what we all like to do here. So, if you're not feeling passionate about it, then I think, as much as we love hearing those dulcet tones and dropping all these knowledge bombs, I think we would all want you to be doing something that you're really excited about and enjoying. And, that's what we should want.
Yeah, you're kind. I haven't gotten any less passionate about poker, I think. There's a boom era that I'll always miss. Maybe we'll talk about nostalgia and about the way the game has changed later. I didn't cool on poker. I'm unique among my acquaintances like this. Many of my poker friends, they either got jaded or they started to worry that they were wasting their lives, or just whatever happened. Like they got more excited about something in a way that reduced their motivation to play poker. I'm not sure that ever happened to me. I just had other things happen. And like, I'm a lucky guy. It got superseded by, another kid and me really getting excited about software. So that's where I am now. I wouldn't say I'm not passionate about poker. I love the game. I think, there are roles in the game that I wouldn't want to play. I think if I could jump down to the Encore in Boston, and if the games were as good as they were in 2004, and I could just sort of jump in and be mediocre and crush the games, like maybe I would, right? But like, I think I don't want to be a fish either. Like I love playing, I would enjoy it, but like, it's just not something, like that's not a role I want to be in. And like the whole modern game, I don't know. There's that whole side of it too.
Well, so it sounds like you haven't diminished your love of poker so much as you've promoted these other things in your life to a similar or higher level of excitement, like software engineering and your new family at home and everything. So, I mean, that's encouraging to hear that you're still passionate about poker and that you still enjoy it. It's just these other things that you enjoy even more, or that you find even more captivating. Yeah,
no, I love it. Yeah, it's exactly right. I mean, I still think poker is one of the very great American traditions, now a very great world tradition. It's wonderful. I get excited about the game. I'm curious where strategy goes. I'm like behind on this. I'm not sure where cutting edge strategy is, but if you could have shown all these crushers in 2005 what the best players would be doing in 2020, they would have been surprised. And I'm really curious to see where this goes, what that means about what the high stakes games will look like. Will people still be playing Hold'em or Omaha? There was a while when Super Raz Doogie, like they just decided to try to like trick each other in all the like super obscure games, which I have feelings about, but that's another separate issue. But yeah, no, I still love the game. I follow it as a tradition, but just less personally.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the traditions and the history of poker, because that's something that, you've always been a go-to for when it comes to etiquette, game security, the reason why we have these rules. I think people, especially, every year that goes by, people are a little less aware of why we have all these rules and etiquette in the game. Usually it's for security, so that people can make it harder to collude or cheat or that sort of thing. Do you find that there's sort of this knowledge gap in modern day players, or are there or let's just speak to that a little, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I think it's a big problem, actually. So think about sort of like the null hypothesis. It's like, if there's $5 sitting out somewhere, like, are people going to try to steal that or no? Yes, right? Like
they probably will.
I like people. I think, the world is full of wonderful people. I believe in certain kinds of basic human goodness, all these things. But there are enough thieves that things get stolen, right? Also, just look at like cryptocurrency, right? Like there's a lot of thieves out there. You really want robust protections against theft in every sort of walk of life. Okay, so what's poker? Poker is a game where a lot of money changes hands. And like the accounting isn't always great. Like it's these little clay discs and these little plastic cards. And Lyman, Limon, I don't know if he's still like a person in the community. He's like a 2+2 poster. Then he did podcasting. And like he always said, like, if you hang out in a casino, you will meet people who can do amazing things with a deck of cards. And there are people who are, just really into magic. Like like, have you ever seen a magic act? People can manipulate physical things, in a way that defies sort of all human expectations and is very hard to track. People are also very good at manipulating attention. So It was sort of a miracle. It was sort of a miracle that poker could ever exist, not as a cheating game. In the early history of poker, it really was just a cheating game. Like it was, that's just how it was. Like it's sort of interesting, right? That this sort of legitimate enterprise grew out of something that was like just cheating. So it's hard to prevent cheating, and it required like lots and lots of traditions, practices, rules, and a ton of like folklore, right?
Mm.
And all of a sudden it became impolite and bad PR to talk about the fact that the poker world is, among other things, dense with cheats, and that the world is dense with cheats, and that, it's just a little bit like trying to get a room full of first graders to behave. It's like, maybe you can do it, and like maybe they've been sitting still for a while, but if you put a bag of candy in the middle of the room and then the teacher leaves, like those kids are not staying in their seats. They're not. And in this metaphor, the first graders are the poker players, and the candy is the money, and the teacher is all the stuff that we knew. Okay. So like, meanwhile, you get all these stories about casinos starting to hire personnel based mostly on like whether they can smile really well, and not based on like deep knowledge of anti-cheating practices. Then all of a sudden, people who are doing the hiring decisions don't even know that, like what, about not rolling the deck, for example. So, so I think a lot is required to keep poker games clean. And I think that relied on a lot of institutional memory and collective knowledge that is being lost. And I also worry that it's like impolite to say like, oh, please don't roll the deck. And then the dealer says like, oh, do you think I'm cheating? And it's like, I got no opinion about you. But like, I do know that if it's okay for dealers to roll the deck, then a bunch of cheats are going to come in here. And like, we won't have poker in a while. And it's like, if you go to a bank and like, the bank teller like follows procedure, if they don't follow procedure, he's like, hey, can you please scan the check? They don't say like, what do you think I am, a thief? It's like, like if we didn't have security cameras in banks, then we wouldn't be able to trust banks. Okay. So yeah, I think it's a big problem. I haven't been real dialed into this for the last 2 years because I haven't played a hand of poker in a year and a half. So maybe all of a sudden card rooms are getting really diligent about this. I have my doubts, but certainly, there was a time in the early boom era where most reputable rooms were run with a really security forward mindset.
Yeah.
And now I'm just not sure that's true. So I hope we get back there before, poker rooms become places where it is not, where you cannot play a fair game.
Yeah. And you mentioned folklore, and I think it does involve, A, kind of an institutional memory when it comes to that kind of stuff, and then B, also those programs being resourced by the card room, right? Like you need the actual establishments to feel like it's a priority, that it's built into the training, that that it's something that they pay attention to when they're bringing people up. Is there something that individual players can do better to protect themselves? And again, specifically, our listeners are mostly recreational players. So is there something that they can like look out for when they're playing live, or, a red flag in the way that something's being handled mechanically that should make them worry about, what they should be looking out for?
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm not really up on this. Like, I mean, one thing is like protect your cards. So
yeah,
that's like one thing, but like, a lot of people don't. And I tell you, it's a lot harder to win at poker if the other guy knows what your cards are.
And so we talk about like protect your cards a lot, but let's just go down one level even from that. What does that even mean when you say protect your cards, and how can people actually protect their cards better than they are typically?
Yeah, so it can actually mean like two different things depending on the context. One is when you peel up the corners to look at your cards, make a nice little cup with your hands so that you're the only one who can see them. So that's one thing. And then another thing is like only trade cards for chips. So like, so you win the pot, the other guy drops his cards. Don't just throw your cards away. Even if the dealer gives you like a little impatient look, like, where are your cards? It's like, no, it's my cards are in my hand or underneath a tall stack of chips until such time as like I have the chips in my hand. Like, only trade cards for chips.
That's one that stuck with me. So to take folks behind the curtain a little bit. So I've been listening to the Thinking Poker podcast since they started, and Nate and Andrew were sort of like the first two people that I followed on Twitter to try and get some free strategy advice from. And I've learned a lot about poker from Nate and Andrew. And every once in a while, Nate will say something like, always trade your cards for chips. It just brings me back, because like that's one thing that stuck with me early on. And ever since I heard that, when I play cash, when I was playing 1-2 a lot, I would just always put a $1 chip on top of my cards, and I would only ever slide them towards the dealer when they slid me the pot. And I was like, here's your $1. Thank you for your time. And I'm not giving these up until I see you pushing those chips over towards me. That's a great one.
Yeah. Two other things you can do. One is look for markings on the back of the cards. A good place to look is when they're being pitched. Sometimes you can only see them when they're like rotating underneath a light. So a lot of places use cards of sort of middling quality, and just because there's some tiny little nick you can see, that doesn't mean that somebody's cheating. But with a high quality deck of cards, then that is a problem. This was notoriously bad at the World Series for years because they were using cheap cards for some reason. Then mostly because of lowball players nailing cards. This is called nailing cards or nailing aces. So when they were doing it, they were squeezing it, but also like nailing can be a term for like cheating by putting a nail mark in there. And that's like sort of something where, like, if it were a crime of opportunity, if it was just somebody who like knows how to cheat and shows up to a place with cheap cards and unobservant staff, certainly just marking the aces and the kings or whatever, just the aces, like that's, I guess in Hold'em, just you'd want to just mark the aces probably. That's like something that you can look out for. And if you're not sure, then protecting your cards either with your literal hand or with a bunch of chips. That's a good thing to do. Second thing you can do is count the pot after it gets pushed to you, because what's like one great way that recreational players who don't have millions of hours to study can be good at poker? Keep track of how much is in the pot. That's a great way to get an edge on your opponents, is like when you're at the table, just count the pot. And, if you're playing poker, you can probably count. It's not always that, but like, no, but it's like hard. It's like, there's $143 in the pot, and then somebody bets 28 and gets 2 calls. Now how much money's in the pot? It's not that easy, but just you're in the pot, keep track of it down to the dollar, know what the rake is. When the pot gets pushed to you, stack it and count it. Is it right? There you go.
That's a great tip.
Those are things, protect your cards, look for the marks, count the pot. Those are 3 things you can do. They're not impolite. And they'll catch, it's not perfect. There are a lot of ways to cheat at poker that won't catch, but sort of an 80-20 thing, as we'd say, that'll get you started. And it's something that's unobtrusive that you can always do.
I like that. And I think, recreational players like us, we should definitely be, it's a weakness of ours to not know the pot size at all times and to be comparing that to people's stacks. And, especially if we're used to playing online and the computer handles all that for us. I know that takes some practice and diligence just to keep track of the pot, but it's something that not only helps yourself from a security point of view, but also it helps you make better bet sizes, and it helps you, make better decisions about how many chips people have behind and that kind of stuff, which can be pretty crucial in tournament poker.
All kinds of poker. I mean, I still did. I mean, I was a veteran player, and you're playing a long time, you get tired, pot seems pretty big, you chuck in $50, it feels like a big bet. It's like, I just bet a fifth of the pot on the pot. Right. I did not want to bet a fifth of the pot on that. That is, oops.
Yes, rarely correct.
Sometimes, but
yes,
no, it's.
Now, you talked earlier about sort of, well, when we were talking about security, you talked about whether people will even be playing Hold'em in the future, and sort of like the evolution of the game. I know mixed games they've always been a great part of poker. And I think they're maybe the future of poker in a way, because it's harder to solve them. It's harder to, there's sort of bigger gaps between the knowers and the unknowers in the game. So, and I know you have some experience with mixed games. What kind of what do you like about mixed games? Has it helped you as a no limit Hold'em player? And would you encourage recreational players to just focus on Hold'em or to play other mixed games as well?
Yeah. Great question. First, I'm going to correct something. I think what I said is like, what will high stakes players be playing? I think Hold'em, there will always be a ton of Hold'em. What I'm curious about is how the game will play out at the highest levels. In particular, whether at the very, very top, whether the edge that the fourth best player has over the ninth best player, whether that's going to be big enough to overcome the variance. And whether that game is sustainable, like if there are 8 great Hold'em players sitting around the table, if, John Q. businessman comes in, like if he just sits down and gets crushed every time, like if the level of play gets so high and people get so good at just filleting John Q. businessman, like then maybe something else has got to happen. I don't know how that happened. And one thing that I thought was interesting about the Super Raz Doogie 12 era or whatever it was that they were pretty much just punting on the idea of ever getting John Q. businessman to sit down at the game in exchange for trying to jockey for maybe a bigger edge against each other. And that I think is interesting. Like the way that trade-off happens is interesting. Okay. So what do I like about mixed games? Yes, they make you better at Hold'em, but probably not as much as studying Hold'em makes you better at Hold'em. I think really I studied mixed games because I liked it and because like it was just sort of a habit I got into. And then I invented a bunch of justifications after the fact. I would have made more money at poker had I been a Hold'em player first. Like I love to talk about all the times that I was able to play for an extra 2 hours at Foxwoods because I also knew studs, so I could play something else.
Right.
There was the 40-80 mixed game at the Bellagio. It used to be triple draw 08 and stud high-low regular, which is what people out west call no qualifier high-low. And that was great. Like that was a big part of my poker life. I did well at that game. It was my regular game for a long time. So that's that. But like, in 2004, all the time I spent thinking about Omaha 8 or better, like, if I just like learned sit and go is a bit better, it would have been like,
right.
All that. I just like them. They do introduce other poker concepts. Although like the flip side of that is that they don't involve some concepts that you do need for Hold'em.
Right,
so
right.
There. I think it's fun. In terms of the future of poker, it's hard to tell. I think poker has gotten so big and it's still very big. For most people who know poker, Hold'em, poker is just synonymous with Texas Hold'em. The way that many people, 20 years older than us don't know that there are trick taking games that are not bridge, where it's like, why aren't you playing whist? It's like, well, because this isn't 1842 or whatever. I'm not an expert on the history of trick taking games. It's possible.
I think whist might be having a renaissance coming soon. We don't know.
Hey, you never know. It's yeah. So I think that we're really never, I think, going to see a time when poker is anywhere near as popular as it is now. And when at least 97.5% of all poker being played is not Hold'em. Like that's just where we are. Some interesting questions to me are, what will happen at the high stakes? Mm-hmm. As I said, to what extent high stakes players choose to try to beat each other and mediocre players at other games as opposed to Hold'em. Omaha still exists. I'm told Europe is still a thing, so there's still pot limit Omaha. And like, there's always going to be like other stuff, like, Follow the Queen will still be played.
Oh yeah.
Etc. So that's that. Also, just personally, the future of 7-card stud. It's like sad to go to Foxwoods, which I haven't done in a while. And, it's like when I was playing in 2003 or 2004, you would go and the stud players would range from like 45 to 90.
Yeah.
20 years later, and pretty much the stud players range from 65 to 90.
Right. It's the same guys, basically, unfortunately.
It's not, stud is, for a long time, poker was limit poker and limit poker was stud poker.
That's what I grew up playing. Yep.
And that's that. But it looks like that's just kind of gone with the wind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's, I want to talk a little bit about, we did talk about sort of nostalgia and going back into the day. You and I both studied philosophy. That's sort of I'm sure that's impacted your worldview as much as it has mine. You've of course gone much deeper with your education. You've got a PhD, but you're also involved in software engineering. But let's just say before you got involved in thinking poker, what were you doing with your philosophy training to put food on the table, and how did that impact your skills as a poker player, but also your skills as a programmer and a software developer and a software engineer?
That's a great question. I was a grad student, so when I started thinking poker, I was a grad student, and I was just about at this decision point. I could either stay in Boston and work remotely. Like do my PhD remotely, or I could go back to Cornell and take on a TA-ship. And I think very fondly about the Cornell philosophy department. I had a great time there, and the stipend is really quite generous compared to some other programs. Cost of living adjusted. When I was there, it was about $24,000 a year, taxed favorably. And to live in Ithaca, New York, you can do that, right? So, from my perspective, then I was really giving something up, but I had personal reasons for staying in Boston. Mm-hmm. In terms of putting food on the table, I could have put some food on some fraction of a table going back to Cornell and being a TA. I could have tried to win the lottery and get a good academic job. Tough to do in the humanities then, even tougher now. All the respect in the world for people who do that. I've been in that world, and some people who leave it say that the people who stayed back are suckers. I don't believe that at all. They're by and large noble people doing noble things, trying to do what they love, and very, very hardworking. So I don't, other people made different choices for good reasons. I decided to start to program computers, and I finished that on the side. I never made money at philosophy and really. And when I was studying philosophy, I was more study oriented, less career oriented. Seeing close up the way that academics lived and what they needed to do. Arguably, I have more time for intellectual pursuits than a lot of philosophy professors do. There are probably even some philosophy professors of whom it could be said that I have more time for philosophy than they do.
I think you're right. You're right. Yeah.
So that's that. You had other good questions. It's like, how did philosophy affect my software engineering? Is that right?
Yeah, because I know in my undergrad, I did a lot of logical notation study, and a lot of the logical notation stuff translates very well to programming. It would seem to me, I'm not at all a programmer, but the concepts seem to make sense. Is that true?
I knew what lambdas were. I knew what anomalous.
Right.
So I studied generative grammar. So like Hyman Kratzer and this Phrygian program of representing English words as with lambdas and the lambda calculus. That was I spent a semester struggling with that. That paid off in philosophy. This idea that things might have formal or formalizable foundations, and that they could have been different than they are or from what they are, and that they can be discovered, but like you can be right or wrong about them. These kinds of ideas are things that come naturally in philosophy. One mistake that a lot of beginning programmers make is to conflate the equals where you're testing to see if two things are equal, and the equals where you're making something equal to something else. And some programming languages, have like sort of related subtle concepts like that. And if you spent long enough in the philosophy of language, you learn that there are just a lot of subtle things we do with predication, with the copula. When we say that something is something else, that can actually mean a lot of different things metaphysically, and people argue over what those are. And so it really positions you well to be sensitive to what might otherwise come across as like subtle distinctions that you need to know to be a programmer. And just the ability to write about technical things is good. Like a big part of being a programmer is writing in English about the computer code that you're about to write or have written or that somebody else should write. And in philosophy, you just write and write and write and write and write. So so that's another part of it.
Cool. I've got a couple more questions. I want to honor your time. We're getting close to when I said I'd let you go. The recreational players, are the errors that we make are always going to be different from generation to generation. But most players go through that same cycle of sort of starting really bad, learning that they have to tighten up, then sort of like getting too loose, and then getting back into like tag. In a general way, what are a couple things that as you got better at poker, you realized recreational players were doing wrong? And a couple things that maybe just our listeners might be able to think about. Maybe it's just like one or two things that they, at a very fundamental level, that they could work on to be less exploitable as recreational players.
For me, the things that I saw, people say like, oh, everybody starts out too loose, and then they play too tight, and then they hit the middle or something, or like, then they play sort of the right frequency of hands, and they have to change like which hands they play or something. For me, there's like six, like phase one is actually 6 sub phases where like you start, and then like it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. Okay, I'm gonna get tightened up, and like really you just need to like tighten up like 6 times. It's like it's it's like like weight loss or something. Like you talk to people who know about weight loss. It's like, oh, well, what's more important, exercising more or eating less? It's like, no, you should probably eat less. Like that's the first thing. And like what most people are doing has a lot more to do with their mouths than their time at the gym, it's just like one example, but like, it's like, oh, what's like the mystical balance? It's like, no, you need to tighten up. You need to tighten. Right. Like, it's like that's really it. Like bet sizing, people like think like this includes me. So it's like, what did I see recreational players do? It's like, I saw recreational players do this, and I also saw this guy do it. Like forever is like the amount of discipline it takes to actually think about your bet sizes and keep on thinking about them and have any clue what you're doing. It's just like, if you walk up to a 1-2 table and you see a pot with $100 in it and somebody bets $35, it's like, if you sort of stop time and ask that person, like, why first, like, do you know how much you bet? Sometimes, right. Do you know how much was in the pot? And like, why, in the broadest sense, did you bet 1/3 of the pot and not 2/3 or a quarter or an 1/8 or twice the pot or move all in or whatever? You're not going to get a good answer. And even if somebody in principle could give it a good answer, they really don't most of the time. Like especially after an hour, like they're a little tired, they're a little tilty, they're more concerned about the drink coming. And like, even when I was thinking about it and like really on my game, it's like I would go talk to Andrew at a break, and it's like, hey, what do you think about this hand? I never got the bet sizes right. Never. Right. Never. And it's like, on the one hand, you can say like, oh, this is a question about recreational players and like this is an advanced topic. But the thing is that even recreational players can do better. And there's just so many leaks of so many kinds that like, if you're like a super, super beginner, it's like, try to keep track of what's in the pot and, maybe bet about half of it sometimes and have some sense of whether you're betting a little bit more or less. That's like sort of step 1 and 2. And then after that, like you can just get better and better and better. So I would, bet sizing, but that's like after you've gone on the spirit walk of tightening up and then tightening up some more and tightening up some more after that, which is like, that's a whole like separate journey. That's like, it's like the part of like one of the original Mario. It's like before you turn into the rabbit in Mario. It's like you think you've beaten the game. It's like, oh wait, no, I have to tighten up some more. There's like another cave and more bomb. I gotta set some more bombs and it's like, okay, now I'm tightening up. And then it's like, oh wait, now I'm a rabbit. And like with that's when you start thinking about bet sizing. But like that's after the whole spiritual quest of the first stuff. Like that's wait till you're a rabbit, Like,
I love that. I love the concept of like the vision quest for tightness, going over the mountain and finding another even tighter mountain there waiting for you. Well, I want to give Roger or Rob or Martha, if you have any questions for Nate before we let him go, type them in the chat here. Nate, we are saying goodbye to your part of the Thinking Poker podcast. Looking back over the last 8 or 9 years, are there any highlights, or are there any favorite guests? I mean, I know it would be hard for you to stop once you get started, but are there a couple moments where you think back and you're like, that's one of those really fond memories I'm going to have of my time with the Thinking Poker podcast?
Yeah. No joke. I'm proud of what we did. I think we were early in normalizing discussion of mental health. And I'm proud of not so much us, but the people who came on and talked about their struggles with mental health, and in some cases successful and in some cases not. And I'm proud of Andrew and myself for saying things like, hey, maybe some of you should quit poker. Like a lot of poker media doesn't want to think about the dark side of the game, including the cheating stuff. We can call back to that. And this idea that mental health is really prevalent, or the mental health problems are prevalent, and that poker isn't for everyone. Like I'm proud that we were talking about that, quite a while ago. And I'm also, I think we were a little bit early on some stuff around like women's roles in the game, LGBT, whatever issues in the game. And arguably, like over the last 3 years, we've been behind the times now, but I think we were ahead of I think being independent and thinking in a clear-eyed way about what was actually going on in poker and wanting to get perspectives from everywhere. We were not like, I was not out, to satisfy any future political ideology. And
right.
But I think to the extent that poker is a less dangerous place for some people, like maybe some of the people we brought on, like, and not me taking the credit, but like, I'm proud of our guests, and I'm proud that we took a very broad view of who we wanted to talk about from the beginning. Other than that, just having Carlos on, he was this like ball of sunshine. He was amazing. And he was like, there's this guy who's like actually doing what you're supposed to do to get good at poker. And he was just this like enormous, like just this ball of sunshine. He was amazing. And now he's so much better than me. And he has a bracelet. Now he's the host. And like, he was just the best, the absolute best. It's like, Andrew's like, oh, there's this guy, Carlos, who's grinding sit and goes, and like, he's really cheap and he wants to like maybe be a pro. And I'm like, okay. I mean, you say we interview him, whatever. Yeah. I mean, like, and then I'm like, you show up and it's like this incredible human being. And now he's done enormous things in poker, will far surpass anything I ever did. I don't, no false modesty. Like the dude, he's got like the coaching and the bracelet, and he's like a workaday pro, and I mean, good for him. He deserves it all. And like, to have had him on early for like, to be sort of part of his origin story in poker. Like he did it all himself, but to have been sort of early on Carlos, that makes me happy.
Nice. Well, we just got joined by John Zomsky, who's one of the few people I know of, along with Chad McPheen, who listens to more poker podcasts than I do. John, if you have any questions for Nate or anything else to add, feel free to jump in here. I see you just unmuted.
Yeah, I was just thinking of you in particular today. I was listening to a technical podcast, and it was about having a Python refactoring IDE. And I know no one in the audience except for me is going to care about this, but do you use any type of Python refactoring tools?
I use PyCharm, and I think it's great. I'm one of these podcasters who I've never taken any money from JetBrains. I have given JetBrains plenty of money. It's great. I highly recommend it. I also think I call them IDE trust falls. I think you should actually learn the refactoring tools. Get to a place where you just pushed up some changes, and then actually extract an interface. Actually do these things. Especially because things like extracting interfaces, thinking about interfaces, that's how you're going to grow as an engineer, I think. So yes, absolutely. I'm a PyCharm person, but Visual Studio Code also great. I definitely, if there's one thing that poker players and software engineers don't do enough of, it's investing in tools and learning the tools. If you take an hour and learn either your IDE, if you're a software engineer, or Poker Stove, poker, whatever if you're fancy, the poker solver thing that I should have learned 8 years ago and I never did, but that's a different thing. That's where you're gonna get better. And trying to learn everything from scratch, studying the game theory textbook, there are great tools out there. Those tools act as a force multiplier on your knowledge, and definitely learn how to use them. The future is going to belong to people who work well with machines. Not get their work taken over by machines, but work with machines. So yeah, I'm a PyCharm guy, but really I would just say yes, use your IDE. IDE for poker play. It's an integrated development environment. When you're programming computers, it's the thing you type in, and then it also gives you little syntax hints and help, and you can turn one function into two functions if you need to. You can figure out every place where this variable gets called, and then many more fancy things besides.
There you go. Thanks, John. Thanks, Nate. Good insight for that segment of our listeners.
Yeah, those one other person besides me.
Well, your questions are. It's not my show. I'm boring.
Well, thanks, Nate. I'm going to let you go. You've been very generous with your time, as you always are, and you're such a great part of the poker world. Just personally speaking, I don't know if we mentioned this on the air, but we do a lot of poker discussions around here and group conversations, and I do some coaching myself with my own clients. And there's probably no one in the poker world who I find myself regurgitating more often than Nate Meyvis. On a weekly basis, I'll give some tip to someone, and I'll just hear Nate saying it on the podcast or in one of our Twitter exchanges or having him on the show. So Nate, it's just a real pleasure to have you here and to say thank you for all that you've done just for me as a player, but for the poker world generally. I hope you feel the love and know that you've touched a lot of people in a wonderful way. So thank you very much.
Really, honestly means a lot. Also, thanks for having listened to me. Also, you guys are still here. A lot of poker podcasts have come and go, and I'm stepping away. No disrespect to anybody who did that, but 93% of success is showing up. Here's to showing up. You guys do great stuff. I'm so happy you still exist. Thanks for having me on. I hope sometime down the road we can talk again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So where can people find you on Twitter, or is that the best place to look you up? And if they're looking for a software engineer, what's the best way to connect with you?
I am Nate Meyvis on Twitter. My website is www.natemeyvis.com. NATEMEY, V as in Victor, IS.com. There you can get my thoughts on software engineering and some poker and parenting books. And I got a draft post about Gerard Manley Hopkins I'm working on. So that's where you can hear a lot of stuff. But yes, also Twitter. Look me up. I like getting email. You can just, on my website, you can just, my email address is there. I'm I'm a very easy person to get in touch with if you want to get in touch with me. How about that? If you want to look me up and you can't figure it out, really, that's your fault.
That's right. And as you can see, he sets the bar pretty low for podcasts too. So don't be afraid to go after the guy. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great evening.
All right. You too. Well, we're going to hear from our friend Jonathan Little, and then we'll come back on the other end of it and talk about some community happenings.
Have you ever wondered whether you should call a preflop raise or 3-bet instead? What do you do when you have a flush draw? Do you raise it or do you just call? What do you do with ace-king when you miss the flop? Are you tired of guessing about what the right play is with your particular hand? Well, my name is Jonathan Little, and I am a 2-time World Poker Tour champion and creator of PokerCoaching.com, where we offer over 1,000 interactive hand quizzes where you play a hand and then get real-time feedback from our world-class pros. Don't guess and don't stress. Just register for your free account at PokerCoaching.com/recpoker right now.
You heard it here first, folks. Better head over to PokerCoaching.com/recpoker and check out that great offer from Jonathan Little. And I happen to know that if you don't think you got great value, he has a money-back guarantee. So go and check that out. John, that was a fun little treat. Thanks for joining us. Nate Meyvis, such a fun character in the world of poker.
Yeah, I noticed I was appreciative that he said, most of being a success is showing up, and he didn't say showing up on time.
Yeah, he really saw right into your heart there, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, that's a treat. It really is. When I got started in poker seriously, when I started seriously thinking about poker, I just can't stress enough how much I learned from the Thinking Poker podcast. And if you're listening to this, they've got over 300 episodes. So go back and you can listen to them going back to 2013. A great variety of guests, always top level strategy conversations. And you can support them by going to knitcast.com. Andrew Brokos continues the podcast with Carlos Welch, they're both just phenomenal poker minds. We've had them on the show before. Andrew's probably the smartest poker player I know in the world. We've done some work together in the past. I'm just always impressed with him. And I do encourage people go check that out, and give Nate a little follow on Twitter and tell him thanks for coming on the show, because I think it helps us out when people see that we're putting people in front of Rec Poker Nation, and Rec Poker Nation is so appreciative and warm and welcoming that it means a lot. So, John, why don't you take us through some recent home game results, and then we'll talk about what else is going on.
That sounds good to me. So, for the Mixed Game Championship Series, the final one of the year, we have MN Ted, Philip Fuhrer, got his very first win.
Wow, nice.
And, of course, that also means that the No Limit Hold'em points race is over, the Mixed Games points race is over. And, I don't even remember who won that.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that. That's weird.
I'll have to look that up because, I didn't put it down on the slide.
Yeah.
It must not have been anyone.
No one noteworthy, I suppose. Someone would have stuck in our mind.
It's Gopher B. TGM. No, Gopher Boy TGM.
Oh, no, not Taylor Moss.
Yes.
Oh, did Taylor Moss win it? He wins everything. No. I'm getting so sick of this.
He deserved it, though. He played very well. What's interesting is Patty 98 came in second place, only 32 points behind Taylor, and he missed 2 of the tournaments.
Wow.
So even if he had just signed up and been the first one out, he would have gotten 10 points for each of those.
Wow.
So really, he just missed it by about 10 points.
And you know what? I was having a beer with Mike Patrick down in Las Vegas in October, and we were talking about that because he had to miss. It must have been the October and November games because he was working for Poker News, I think.
No, he made November. It was October and November. Yeah, October and November that he missed.
So he put his poker reporting career ahead of the Player of the Year race, and that's what happens, Mike. That's what happens when you mess with the bull. Taylor Moss, he's going to bring the horns. And that's what happened. He came through and snuck it out in December. Congratulations, Taylor. We're actually going to be having an interview with Taylor just in a couple of weeks on the show. So you'll get to find out a little more from him about what that experience was like. Truly his crowning achievement as a poker player. So we'll learn more about that in 2022. Nice. So I'm sort of a little sad that that's all done. Maybe next year. Oh, no, never mind. We won't talk about that on the air. Let's make some plans for next year before we commit to them publicly, John.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good idea. Then we have Binkley, Eric Jin, got his 4th nightly victory for the year.
Oh, nice.
Noah 1292 got his first and second nightly victory for the year.
Back to back. Noah Anderson, way to go.
Well, it was on the 7th and 9th. Technically, there was the mixed game in between.
I see.
But it was back to back for the nightly,
right?
Or the daily series nightly events.
Back to back.
Then we have Keck Geek, Mark Kiki. Now this is Mark
Jacob's
Kiki.
dad.
Yeah. This is the senior Keck Geek.
The original Keck Geek.
The original Keck Geek.
Way to go, Mark.
And he's got his 7th nightly victory for the year.
The force is strong in that family, no doubt.
It should also be noted that he's had 9 total victories this year.
Whoa.
So and his son right now is sitting at 19.
19. He's got 2 weeks left to make it to 20.
Yep. Okay. Then we have aces. 5, 4, 3, 2, 0. Kathy Chang got her 2nd nightly victory for the year.
Now we got to stop for a second here because I want to talk about Kathy Chang. Kathy Chang is a complete ace when it comes to mixed games. It's not just her handle. She and I have been chatting over email and site messages about how to get mixed games a bigger part of Rec Poker in 2022. So, Kathy, if you're listening, let's get back connected again, because I think we've got some really good ideas for 2022. Getting more of a mixed game focus at Rec Poker. You've got this great passion and energy for it, and you're such a skilled player. Thanks, Kathy. I'm looking forward to doing a little more with you on that front. And thanks again for giving Rec Poker Premium a try. It's been fun getting to know you a little better, and I hope you're enjoying it.
And speaking of mixed events, Gibber 3, Jim Gibson.
The real
got
Jim.
His first daily mixed victory of the year.
Roll. Jeez, this guy.
And then
he stopped.
Jay Sedham, Jeff S., got his 2nd international victory for the year.
We've heard his name a few times as well. Yep. Nicely done, Jeff.
And Isenma Spike has gotten so many victories. This is his 6th international victory that I now have come up with a pronunciation of his name that is
not even phasing you anymore, isn't it? It's just boom.
I may not be pronouncing it right, but anyway. And then for the LPP Sunday event, we have Captain Walleye, Rob Ansem.
Yes.
Got his first LPP Sunday victory of the year.
Rob, congratulations, man. I see you're actually in the chat here as well, listening along. So way to go. Rob, I don't know if this is public. I think Rob also did pretty well in an MSPT seniors event a little while ago. I haven't verified that I haven't double sourced that, but I believe Rob has been crushing it recently. So congratulations, Rob.
Well, and that would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, he's been putting in some time, and he's a regular in a lot of our Rec Poker events, and I know he's thinking a lot about how to improve these days and putting in the time. So congratulations, Rob. And because you won on Sunday night, you have won a free month at Learn Pro Poker. So you can send me an email, just like anyone who wins on Sunday night. Send me an email, jim@rec.poker, and I'll send you your information to how to get that free month. And you're going to love it over there. Rob, you're going to get a lot of cool stuff there. So pick a month when you've got some downtime to take advantage of it, because you don't have to use it right away.
And then I also wanted to mention, I've had a lot of questions recently we have 2 Tournament of Champions series coming out this last month in December. So remember, if you win a daily series event, the Tournament of Champions is always the following month. So if you win a daily series event in December, you'll be playing the Tournament of Champions the 2nd Monday in November. The way that I contact the people who have qualified is by sending them a message on Rec Poker. So make sure you have your account set up there and that you have it set to notify you when you receive messages, so that you know how to sign up for the TOC clubs, because they are different than our normal our normal community club, because I have to like suspend people. And if you ever get suspended from that club, it's just because you didn't happen to qualify for the upcoming Tournament of Champions. Not that you did anything wrong whatsoever, unless you were Jim.
And John, where can people reach you? What's your best way for people to reach out to you? Your favorite way? Because I know people can email you, they can find you on Twitter, they can DM you in the site. What's your preferred way for people to reach out if they have questions about the home game?
I prefer them to write it on a $20 bill and just slip it into my hand. But no,
actually, just send any questions to steve@rec.poker. And
if you have any questions, you can email me at john@rec.poker or go ahead and message me on the rec.poker site. You will have to connect to me, but I accept all connection requests. So feel free to do either one of those.
Right on. And we did introduce a new feature to the website now. If you have joined as a community member, and if you have all the fields in your profile set up properly to be admitted to the home games, then you will get the badge that says home gamer. So if you're on the website and you go to your own profile and you see a little badge there that says home gamer, you have filled out all the fields correctly, and John will make sure that you get entered into the home game club to play in our free money PokerStars home games, which we do about 10 a week. It's a lot of fun. Win a pin, win your way into the Tournament of Champions, and just get better at poker by playing along with other serious amateurs. It's just one of the things we're doing a little differently on the website. There's also badges for members that log in 7 days in a row. If you're there actively, you get a badge. A badge for people posting in the forums, a special OG badge for those that joined us back in the day before we got all fancy and slick with this brand new website. So do go and check that out and have some fun. Have some fun on the website. Join some groups. Post in the forums. Check out the Discord. There's a lot of cool ways to just hang out there for free. We've got a million free videos on YouTube too, so go check that out as well. And yeah, just go have fun. Have fun with all the free stuff at Rec Poker. We do a lot of free stuff. It's just a lot of fun to do it.
And I have to send out a personal thanks to website Mark, because he made some changes recently. Prior to that, about 90% of the people signing up for the home game were not doing it correctly. They wouldn't fill in the PokerStars username, or I'd have to go and figure some things out and manually tweak them. And so it was a lot of effort. Now, I would say about 90%, maybe even 95% are getting it right.
Whoa.
So huge improvement.
There you go.
On that. So I want to thank website Mark personally, and it's a streamlined sign-up process now, or at least more clear. So sign up and let's play in the home games.
Nice. Well, I think by the time this episode comes out, it's just going to be a few days before Christmas. So I guess that's Mark doesn't need to get you a Christmas present this year, John. It sounds like you've already opened that one under the tree. You're all set.
Oh, yeah. That's all I needed for Christmas.
Well, let me see. What else is new and exciting coming along? I know there's going to be a bunch. Chris Jones is working feverishly behind the scenes to kind of augment some of the way that we display our videos, some of the way that we categorize some of our content online. So in 2022, you'll see a lot of exciting stuff on that front. Let me see. I guess, is there anything else that we should touch on here, John?
Well, I would say what's one of the biggest things that we're probably all looking forward to in January?
Well, for me, I know it's the Reckies Award Show on Wednesday, January 26th at 6:30 Central, because it's going to be Colin and Danny hosting again. The whole panel will be there. Where everyone's invited to come and dress up. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got some special guests coming. We're going to give out some awards. We're also going to be drawing for some prizes, including a $200 video pack from D&B Publishing about the Michael Acevedo Modern Poker Theory video series, which I'm really excited about. Some free months at Rec Poker. We're just getting started here, folks, but circle that Wednesday, January 26th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. John, did I get it right, or was there something else that we're all really excited
That's
about?
Exactly what I was thinking of. I know last year was a blast. We'll get a chance to see, I'm already chomping at the bit to see who they come up with for some of the greatest performances in the home games. Mm-hmm. And maybe greatest performances fulfilling a prop bet might show up in there somehow. Who knows?
Yes, that's right. Oh, speaking of which, I don't know if have we announced who the winner of the No Limit Hold'em Player of the Year race is? Because I know the championship is going to be on Wednesday, where we take the final two tables. We take the 12 monthly winners plus a series of points winners to play in a final two table championship tournament. And the winner of that is officially the 2021 Rec Poker No Limit Hold'em champion. But there is the Player of the Year race as well. And we want to know who, and I guess that's all sewn up now. So who, John, is the 2021 No Limit Hold'em Rec Poker Player of the Year? Is it anyone we know?
No, this is a person. I don't even remember them winning a single tournament, and yet they're at the top of this. It is Rec Poker Steve.
Oh my God!
Fredlund.
It can't be. This thing rigged. Hashtag rigged.
And you know what is also impressive there is he got 340 points, and the nearest person to him, who was Stewie 13, got 294.
Wow.
So that's quite a lead to have there. Now, in Stewie's defense, he did have to miss one of those tournaments. So, if he had played that, he probably would have beat Steve. But we'll let Steve have it anyway.
Yes, that let him have. Well, first of all, Stu, way to go, man. Especially the fact that Stu missed one of those tournaments and was still able to do it. So Stu's another one of our premium members who's a regular in our strategy conversations. He's a big help in a lot of he's there in the OPA almost every Tuesday. He asks great questions in our study groups. We actually even play in a live point league towards a WSOP satellite along with Kim Kilroy and Elizabeth Bennett Martin. So Stu, way to go on second place. I'm sorry you couldn't get that 12th tournament in and take the big dog down. But Steve Fredlund, how about this? The guy starts this whole organization, starts the podcast, puts this group together, and now we know why. The 2021 Rec Poker No Limit Hold'em Player of the Year. Congratulations, buddy. That's got to feel good. And Taylor won the mixed games? Is that what I'm hearing correctly? Oh, my God. And then last year, I think it was Jamel Cuevas that won the Player of the Year race. And Mike Patrick, of course, was the only one who could be considered for the mixed game Player of the Year. So I guess all that's left to see is who's going to be the No Limit Hold'em champion out of this last tournament.
Right. And the way it works is there are 18 players the top 18 players, anyone who won a tournament automatically gets in, and then the top point earners to fill it out to 18 players. However, there are also 6 alternates that are available. So we'll see if the people in the top 18 have not signed up as of Wednesday, because we're playing it just 2 days from this recording, or about 4 days before you listen to it. This thing, whatever. By the time you listen to it, it's going to be over. Yes. Then maybe the alternates will be playing. But let's see how good you are at Rec Poker trivia.
Uh-oh.
Who would you guess have won the most home games this year? The top 3 players
that have won the most home games period this year?
Yep.
All right. Well, obviously I'm putting Jacob Kiki on the list.
Yep. That one is correct. And how many has he won?
19 in total,
correct.
Is my understanding.
That's a good guess.
Who is behind him? I mean, Mark Kiki's got to be pretty close in double digits already. And I know you've been struggling with Spike quite a bit. So I know he's up there in that double digits as well. I've seen.
So both of those guesses are not 2 and 3.
Okay.
The second and third players show up a lot to the recordings, participate a lot in a lot of things. There is one of each gender.
Okay. So let's think. Could it be Kim Kilroy?
Yes. Kim Kilroy is in second place with 16.
Oh my God.
This year.
She is such a killer. She
didn't even announce that she was going for
anything.
And
she's averaging 1.25 a month. Oh my God. And then
your final hint, this isn't good actually. because Kim, of course, is Canadian. And the third individual is also Canadian. That's your hint.
Oh, my God. What, is it Chad McVean?
Nope.
Oh, you're going to get me in trouble with my Canadian followers now. Hold on a second. Our Canuckian members are going to be getting out the pitchforks and torches. Canadian male regular. Is it Evil Roy?
Yes, it is.
Yes, Evil Roy. You dog.
Evil Roy has 14 victories this year.
Whoa, dark horse.
Yeah. So they have really turned their games on this year.
Holy cow. Way to go. And Evil Roy.
And it's probably not a coincidence that they are two of the most active participants as well.
Yep. You said it, man. I know Evil Roy goes by Dave. Dave joined premium membership this year. And he's been very active in our Saturday study groups, in the Wednesday night online review and hang, on Tuesday night in the OPA. And I don't think it's a coincidence that these players that are getting involved in the strategy conversations are just killing it in the home game. Because I don't think that's a coincidence at all. And we see a lot of these active participants on the leaderboard every week. And I think, that's why, because talking about poker with other people makes you better at poker. And it's not just, listening to the podcast, watching the videos, those kind of passive learning, those are great opportunities. But when you have to put things into words yourself, your brain thinks about them differently. And there's really no substitute for talking poker with people who are trying to talk about the same kind of things you are.
Me talk better than I used to.
Don't get me started. There's a hole with no bottom. Steve makes this look easy, but sometimes I think it's like the and ah show. If you get Chris Jones and I together, it's just like an and ah fest. Look out. All right. Well, I guess that's everything on my list I want to talk about tonight. I'm excited to open up some presents and sip some eggnog and count the reindeer stuffs on the roof. Boundless glee, right, John? I think that's what we're wishing to all our Rec Poker members and listeners. So I guess without further ado, I'll just say thanks to website AMP, Running Aces Hotel, Racetrack and Casino, Roger, Rob, and Martha in the chat, Nate Meyvis, of course, John Somsky. Merry Christmas, everybody, and thanks for listening. See you again soon.